Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a new video, and today we are in my home office, my studio, which is not a studio. It's just a humongous room with really high ceilings and an echo. So we will be getting some sound deadener to put in these walls to quiet this down, but hopefully it sounds okay for you all. But this is the first video in here, and I want to thank my wife for putting this together, for making this possible. I've got monitors, I've got 3 monitors, I've got my video games, I've got every piece of equipment nicely stowed away. I love this thing. It's awesome. And finally, I can depart from just filming in my Scat Pack and start doing some videos here. But I promise you, I will get out in the field. I will be doing stuff out in the driveway. I will be doing installs. I have some fun things planned and all kinds of great dealer exposure videos as well that you all seem to love. The views are always good on those, even though some of you have expressed some concern about them being a little repetitive, and I would agree with you. I am to the point, personally, if I'm just being honest, just us, if you can keep all this just a little bit secret and just between us for now, that I'm exhausted with it. I'm mentally exhausted with the amount of negativity I get. I've got a dealer ripping me to shreds on Instagram right now, calling me names, and he's a a manager of a Dodge dealer, and he's just going hard on me, and it's just disgusting. I would have never thought I'd be interacting with people who are this petty and nasty, but I am, and I signed up for it. I jumped in with both feet, with one mission in mind, which was to help people save money, make good decisions, not get ripped off, and it became, frankly, addicting to do good, to do good in the world, to bring help to people who otherwise maybe would end up in a situation they would regret down the road, and for that I'm not ashamed. We've done a lot of good work. Myself, TK, Butter, the Insider, we've done a lot of good work. We've saved downright millions of dollars for people, and the amount of DMs that I am getting back to and trying to keep up with, and emails, people thanking us for all the work we do and thanking me and asking for private help, which I've tried to provide as much as possible. It's fulfilling, but with it, there's been some negativity, and that negativity has led to me not wanting to live in our last house, me not trusting random cars in the neighborhood, being doxxed online, being told not to come to certain dealerships, and being called names on Instagram. So it's been, I don't know. Has it been worth it? I think it's worth it. Am I a little suspicious when someone comes up to me at Cars and Coffee and they don't have a huge smile on their face? Yeah, I assume it might be a salesman who's been a little fried and burned and not able to make the money he used to make because of my videos. But I'm not going to stop doing it, but I can assure you there's going to be a lot more diverse content taking place. But today's video, I wanted to do, one, to try out my studio, to try out my new office, to see how this thing comes out, get all your opinions on it, and share with you just some thoughts I have on these cars, from whether it's a Demon 170 or Special Edition or Hellcats or some of these sticker cars or King Daytonas or whatever they are. The vast majority, unfortunately, of, I think, the King Daytonas, the Black Ghosts, the Demon 170s, and even a lot of the other Special Editions I've seen on YouTube where people were buying them and they're storing them in their garages, in storage facilities. One guy I saw bought a Black Ghost. He's going to store it for his infant child, so his infant child can have it one day, and it will maybe provide a lot of wealth to this kid when he's older. I've seen it all. You've all seen it all, that these cars are going to be resurrected 10, 15, 20 years from now back into the universe at astronomical prices. At least that's what these people believe. But I will tell you, the problem with this is that when you have the vast majority of these cars are going to be collectors' cars and speculator cars, they're not going to be driven, they're not going to be raced, they're not going to be enjoyed, then you end up having something that is no longer rare. And when you go back to the 60s, the 70s, and the cars that ultimately became those rare barn finds, these cars that became these masterfully recreated resto mods that are going for $150,000, $200,000 and getting auctioned for massive amounts of money. These cars are one in millions, one in very rare amounts of cars. So unlike when you've got nearly, I believe it's 1 million of these Challengers have been built. Since these things came out, been close to, I think it was 800,000 or 900,000 of them, that there's no shortage of these cars. Now, how many special editions, demons, black ghosts? Now, that's a whole different story. We're talking in the thousands, and in some cases, some of the cars, and I will say this jokingly, like my 2023 Dodge Challenger Swinger Special Edition Scat Pack with the 6-speed manual. That car, I believe there's less than maybe 200 of those on the planet Earth, and it still lost a ton of value. But let's say I was to keep it in my garage, keep the miles low, and save it for 20 years. Maybe that car would be special to somebody where they'd be willing to pay good money for it. But what I wanted to share with you today is the only issue is, let's say there's 3,300 Demon 170s that are going to be out there, or Black Ghosts and the King Daytonas. Well, if most of these cars are going to be saved and stored, then what we're looking at is, let's say a decade from now, a whole bunch of cars that have been sitting, hopefully started up periodically, hopefully driven around the block regularly, but many sitting and rotting. And here's the problem when you talk about these collector cars being sold a decade from now, 2 decades from now, 3 decades from now, is that everyone's forgetting that when a car sits for a long time, that these cars end up needing massive amounts of restoration, even though they've been sitting. I look back, and some of you may have seen a video, I think I did a video on this, where I went and looked at an old, I think it's 80s Lotus Esprit, and it was British racing green, and it was gorgeous. In the pictures, it was the ultra rare spec with only 6,000 miles on it. We're talking about a 35, 40-year-old car with 6,000 total miles on it. And the pictures of this car looked amazing. So I literally went, I got the bank check. They only wanted, I think it was 52,000 for it. I offered 42 or something like that. And the dealer called me back and said, it's a consignment car. I asked the owner. He said he'd take it. Outstanding. But you got to take it as is. And you got to sign something understanding that this car is going to need some work. And I said, what do you mean? It's only got 6,000 miles on it. The car looks beautiful. He says, I know, but come look at it. And I'm like, how can this thing be bad? It only had 6,000 miles on it. Well, here's the deal. Honest to God truth, I wish I could find the pictures on my phone of this thing. Every single piece of rubber on that car was rotten to the extent that the seals around all the windows had rotted, and there was moisture on the inside of the windows. There was moisture forming, and there was interior pieces that were drooping from all the water over the years of this car just sitting and then pulling in condensation from the atmosphere because the rubber was no longer preserving the inside of the car. And if that was the outside rubber, and I've heard about windshields vibrating loose because the rubber is completely rotten and hardened to the point that the windshield just busts out or cracks. If that rubber is bad, imagine what the rubber in the engine compartment looks like. Imagine what every seal in the car looks like. Imagine what it's going to cost to bring that 35, 40-year-old car back to life. It would cost way more than if I found one that had 60,000 miles on it that had been driven. I've been doing some research, and I read that, and it's a pretty great statement when you think about it, that miles matter in a car that's between 5 and 7 years old. We're looking at, if I can get a car between 5 and 7 years old with low mileage, that car is probably still a good car. After that, low mileage becomes a detriment and even a hindrance to value if the car has not been preserved properly and taken great care of, started up, had the fluids changed regularly, all these things that most people probably won't do, especially the amount of people that are new to collecting cars that are just going to put these things in their garage. And like that one picture I showed you all where the guy put it in that hermetically sealed bubble, that car is going to sit there and he's going to hope that thing is going to be perfectly preserved for a decade. And he said for 10 years it's going to be in there. I'm hoping he gets in it and starts it up. Well, in the supercar community that I'm in, and I have my Lamborghini, and my last Lamborghini was a 2005 Gallardo. That car I bought with 21,000 miles on it. And that car ran beautifully, had a few issues, but nothing related to sitting around. I found several cars that had less than 10,000 miles on them, and almost every single time I was finding issues with the rubber, the seals, the brittleness of every piece of plastic in that car because it had been sitting for so long. And the one thing they say is if you don't drive the Lamborghini, you don't drive the Ferrari, it will kick you in the teeth with repair bills. So then I found a beautiful 2002 360 Spider at a dealership I frequent often where I bought my car. And the salesman, I won't say who, but the salesman literally said, I said, wow, that is a beautiful car. He said it only has 2,500 miles on it, I think it was. A couple thousand miles on it, meaning that car from 2002, somebody bought it and propped it up on jack stands and kept that thing perfect and did not drive it. And I said, I would love to have that car. I mean, they wanted way more money than one with miles on it. And when I asked him, well, why are you looking at me funny? He says, you don't want this car. And I said, why not? And he says, you don't want the expense. Unless you're going to make it a museum showpiece, the first time you drive this thing, you're going to start finding issues. You're going to start leaking stuff. You're going to start breaking stuff. Belts are going to start snapping. Nothing has been changed on this car since 2002. This car has not been lubricated, has not been driven. It's just been sitting. So the point of this video to get across is that another issue we're going to see with so many of these cars, with people collecting them, is when they come back for sale a decade from now, and you go out looking, thinking, maybe, man, I want to buy one of these things, you got to assume that it's going to need a boatload of work. No pun intended, because it is a big, huge, heavy car, but it's going to need a ton of work and a ton of money to be put into it. And the tough thing about seals and rubber parts and hoses and belts and all these things that are hidden up and keeping the engine together and keeping it from leaking is these oftentimes are serious maintenance issues, serious repair issues, meaning, especially in an exotic car, engine out type issues, not little stuff, big stuff, and dismantling of the engine type stuff. So you may drive it off the lot and feel really great that you got a Lotus Esprit, 6,000 miles on it, and then you get home and find out that, 70% of the plastic and rubber holding that thing together and keeping it from leaking are all rotten, and now it's a sieve of oil in your driveway, or air conditioning explodes the first time you use it. That's the problem. And I think we're going to see, since so many of these cars were bought by speculators and collectors, that they're going to be sitting and sitting and sitting because the last thing they want to do is put miles on them. Because low miles, in their opinion, is going to be what's going to get that car sold for the top dollar price. But I'll tell you, if you go look at what really pulls big money, it's these semi-original resto mods. When you go back, you want a 69 Charger resto modded, where it's got all the modern stuff, but you've got the beauty of an old car. These things are ridiculously expensive, outrageously expensive, because you're paying for the reliability of being able to drive and actually enjoy that car. That's what makes it worth a bunch of money. So when you see the 170s and the Black Ghosts and the King Daytonas a decade from now come on the market, look for the ones with a bunch of miles on them. They're going to be a little bit less money, maybe even a lot less money, but they're going to be the ones that will keep going strong and keep driving well and not break your bank. So with that, everybody, please like, subscribe, comment, share your thoughts on this. I honestly am just more of an advocate of anything of people just getting their cars and driving the hell out of them and making them run great, taking great care of them, service them regularly, and then pass them on to the next guy who's going to enjoy the hell out of that car too, and keep these things running for 100,000 miles, 200,000 miles, like my Crown Victoria. You can't kill the thing because it's never sat for very long, not once. The thing keeps going. 110,000 miles on it, runs like it's brand new. Cars need to be driven. So again, see you in the next video. Like and subscribe, comment. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.